The reservation card trembled slightly between his fingers as the message sank in. Cancelled. No explanation that mattered, just a polite apology from someone he had never met, sent minutes before he was supposed to arrive. The city restaurant glowed with soft lights and quiet laughter, yet in that moment it felt like a stage where he stood exposed, dressed for a role that would never be played. He was the man people feared in boardrooms and admired in headlines, but here, under warm chandeliers and white tablecloths, he was simply a man left sitting alone, wondering how success could feel so loud in public and so empty in private. Before the story continues, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel if you believe in kindness and second chances. Stories like this remind us that the smallest moments can change everything. He took his seat anyway. That alone said something about him. Many would have walked out, but he stayed, adjusting his cufflinks out of habit, scanning the room as if looking for confirmation that loneliness did not have to win tonight. Years of building a company from nothing had taught him discipline, patience, and how to endure disappointment without showing it. Yet this was different. This disappointment was quiet and personal. It did not care about stock prices or quarterly growth. It simply sat across from him like an invisible guest, reminding him of nights spent in penthouses that echoed, of birthdays remembered by assistants, of friendships that faded as ambition grew. The waiter approached with careful politeness, sensing the imbalance at the table. He ordered anyway, choosing familiar comfort foods that reminded him of simpler days before tailored suits and private drivers. As he waited, his mind drifted back to the reason he had agreed to the blind date in the first place. A colleague had insisted that even the most powerful men needed someone to remind them how to be human. He had laughed it off, then surprised himself by agreeing. Maybe he was tired of being admired instead of known. Maybe he wanted someone who did not Google his name before meeting him. Across the room, a woman stood uncertainly near the entrance, clutching a worn handbag and scanning the dining area with the same hesitant hope he had felt earlier. She was a single mother, though no one could tell that just by looking. What they could see was the fatigue in her posture, the quiet strength in her eyes, and the way she checked her phone once more before slipping it back into her bag with a resigned sigh. Her babysitter had canceled at the last minute, then called back to say she could still watch the child if the mother returned soon. The woman had decided to come anyway, telling herself that she deserved one evening that was not defined by responsibility. She approached the host stand only to learn that the restaurant was fully booked, except for one table already set for two, where only one person sat. The host gestured politely toward him, asking if he would mind sharing. The request reached him like a soft knock on a door he had already assumed would remain closed for the night. He looked up and saw not a stranger intruding on his solitude, but a woman carrying the same quiet disappointment he felt. He nodded without hesitation. She thanked him with a small, genuine smile and took the spare seat. There was an awkward pause, the kind that exists when two lives briefly collide without preparation. Yet something about the silence felt gentle rather than heavy. They were not pretending to be anything for each other. They were simply two people who had arrived expecting something else and found themselves here instead. Time moved differently after that. The restaurant noise faded into the background as they began sharing pieces of their lives in a way that felt natural, unforced. He did not introduce himself by title or achievement. He spoke about long nights at work, about losing his father young and learning to be strong before he understood what strength really meant. She spoke about raising a child on her own, about the fear and pride that came with being both provider and protector, about dreams she had paused but never abandoned. The food arrived, but neither of them noticed right away. What mattered was the unexpected comfort of being seen without judgment. For the first time in years, he felt his shoulders relax. He was not performing or persuading, he was simply present. And she, so used to carrying the weight of the world alone, felt something shift inside her as well. She was not being pitied or admired, she was being listened to. As the evening unfolded, challenges surfaced naturally, like shadows cast by candlelight. He admitted that despite his success, he struggled with trust, always wondering if people valued him or what he represented. She admitted that dating felt like a risk she could not afford, that every disappointment echoed louder because her child depended on her emotional stability. Their struggles were different in form, but similar in feeling. Both had built walls for survival. Both were quietly tired of standing behind them. Outside, rain began to fall, streaking the windows with silver lines. The city blurred into a watercolor of lights and movement, and inside, something fragile and hopeful took shape. He realized that this unexpected encounter felt more meaningful than any carefully planned date ever had. She realized that sitting down had not been a mistake, that sometimes courage looked like asking for a spare seat. As the evening drew to a close, neither rushed to leave. They lingered, aware that moments like this were rare and easily lost. He paid the bill without ceremony, not as a gesture of power, but as one of gratitude. She thanked him again, this time with warmth that lingered long after she stood to go. They exchanged contact information, not with promises or expectations, but with a shared understanding that whatever this was, it was worth honoring. He watched her walk away, blending back into the city with the quiet grace of someone who had survived much and still chose hope. For the first time in a long while, he did not feel the familiar ache of emptiness as he left the restaurant. Instead, there was a sense of possibility, fragile but real, like the first green shoot after winter. Days passed, then weeks. They met again, this time intentionally, navigating the delicate balance between excitement and caution. He learned to step out of the boardroom mindset and into a world where bedtime stories and school schedules mattered. She learned that not all successful men were distant or self-absorbed, that some carried their own invisible scars. They moved slowly, respecting each other's boundaries, letting trust grow at its own pace. Challenges did not disappear. His work demanded time and energy, testing his commitment to showing up consistently. Her responsibilities as a mother meant that spontaneity was a luxury. There were moments of doubt, moments when old fears resurfaced, but unlike before, they faced these moments together, with honesty and patience. He adjusted his priorities, discovering that success felt richer when shared. She allowed herself to dream again, realizing that strength did not mean doing everything alone. One evening, as they walked through a quiet park, he understood something that years of leadership seminars had never taught him. True power was not in control or wealth, it was in vulnerability, in choosing connection over isolation. And she understood that accepting help did not make her weak, it made her human. Near the end of this story, if it touched your heart even a little, please like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps keep stories like this alive and reaching those who need them most. Their lives did not transform overnight into a perfect picture. There were still hard days, misunderstandings, and sacrifices. But there was also laughter that came easily, comfort and share of silence, and a growing sense of home that had nothing to do with houses or titles. The spare seat that had once been an afterthought became a symbol of how close they had come to missing each other. Before this story ends, we have a special request for you. Please comment below and tell us what this story made you feel, or share a moment when a small act of kindness changed your life. In the end, he often thought back to that canceled date and smiled. What had felt like rejection had been redirection.
What had felt like loneliness had been an invitation. And she, too, remembered the courage it took to ask for that seat, grateful she had listened to the quiet voice that told her to try. Sometimes the most important connections are not planned. They happen when expectations fall away and two imperfect lives meet in the space they almost walked past. And if this story stayed with you, if it reminded you that kindness can rewrite fate and that second chances often arrive disguised as disappointments, then hold on to that feeling, because somewhere, right now, someone is sitting alone and someone else is gathering the courage to ask for the spare seat.